Felt like I'd do an obvious one today. It's approximately 2:45 a.m., so there won't be as much or energy in this considering the late hour. Um, the basic gist of an age-old fact. War never changes. Effectively, war can go on for eternity, mainly because there will always be human beings to fight for and fight against. One side fights for their homeland, the other one fights to follow orders, basically. One fights for a cause that's just to go home. Well, actually, no, they don't do that. The people in the war fight to do that. The wars in itself are just to service an interest of its government's agenda. Now, before you anti-government idiots start going off the handle, I have to make this very clear. Government agenda isn't always bad, okay? And a good, responsible government will only use war as a last resort. Okay. Some see it more like Hitler, the pure bloodline, or the dominant species, which, in all instances and purposes, is nothing more than a justification to create other blood-soaked living hell. It's easy to condition people to hate. You have two fronts in the battlefield, you have different nationalities, the nationalities have different civilizations, different sub-layers, and the division of power and position is that the civilians live a normal life as they should, and the military goes and they fight and try to kill the enemy. Which leads us to where we are in this point, which is a very simple point. I hear a lot from soldiers that go into war that they absolutely hate the other species. They hate them because they've seen such atrocities. But you have to think on the flip side too. They've seen atrocities on the enemy's side as well. They've seen their friends die. Their allies, their comrades, they fear that their friends will be invaded or killed, or their way of life being threatened, and different justifications. No different than what you see in the anarchist's way of life or the racist's way of life. It's no different. So the point of a military is that if your enemy, or if another enemy, per se Russia, invades Khmer, well, they're using a military to take over forcibly something that does not belong to them. That means they cross a line. When Al-Qaeda attacked the Twin Towers, it means they crossed the line. When North Korea threw a dummy nuke at us, that was technically crossing the line. It didn't land, so it's hard to say. When Hitler invaded other countries, that was crossing the line. Actions like that warrant military action. Of course, when it becomes a fist fight, it usually goes on for however long it takes for people to pass out or get arrested or restrained. So, something that a lot of people do not understand, primarily soldiers, they forget that their enemy was fighting to survive and to go home a majority of the time, just like they were. The only thing that's important is the same as any other fight, the same as those protesters in the streets. It is knowing that you're backing the right horse, or you're putting your bets on the right horse. Majority of people don't even do that. They fight because the contract tells them to. They fight because they see no other way. They fight because of peer pressure. They fight because they don't want to admit guilt for something. They fight for a lot of reasons. Most of them juvenile, like superior bloodlines and such. That's a stupid reason. The massacre of Rwanda, we saw that in history class and government class and a bunch of other classes. It's basically designed to teach us one basic concept. Everybody has a right to live, and those people in Rwanda were viewed as cockroaches, no different than the way the racists view other Latinos and other ethnic groups. So it's fairly simple. A war can continue on for one of three outcomes, which is very simple. One will be eternal until nothing is left. Another is done until peace is restored. And then another is done without resolve. With the war in Hitler, it was the only way to end it was his death, because he viewed other races as inferior and wanted to prove his right by forming war. Wanted to make his country great again by invading others. That was crossing a line, because it killed people, cost people their lives. Then we have the racists. There are two ways to torture a person. There's the psychological way, where you offer them the greatest of pain, with only a slight synthetic hope to be robbed away from them over and over and over again. Or there is simply false hope. The kind that you guilt a person with, the kind you try to pass blame, scapegoat in a sense. Slowly, very slowly, hurt a person until you can force them to accept it as their fault. And then they just kill themselves. It's a horrible way to do things. Absolutely horrible. There's different ways of doing things. And some people make a sport out of it. Like the racists. Racists see it as other people bearing down the system too much. Like, the system isn't strong enough to uphold all these people, despite the fact they've been doing it quite well for several years, even throughout the entirety of its existence. They want to put the blame of things that are not the problem. They want to fabricate a problem and blame other people for it. That would be the slow way of torturing people. Fabricate a means in which people can rally behind, and then let them slowly torture themselves or torture each other for the small amount of people that would actually accept it. And then there are also those who would be willing to do things more resiliently. The kind of people who will fight back. Of course, those people never just recent a fight. That's something that a lot of those Trump supporters do not understand. Trump crossed many lines. And now that he is in a position where he can actually do damage beyond just his words, well, that's a reason to fight. Only this time these soldiers are not fighting because of peer pressure. They're not fighting for their money or anything like that. They're fighting for their most basic God-given rights. They're fighting for the right to be treated human. Of course, if human means treating them like shit, then you yourself would be considered no different. But of course, to those of you who would think that they are human and still treat them like shit, then you are just hypocrites who have no understanding of what the entire concept. You might as well turn off the video now. There's no way you'll be able to comprehend it. But to those of you who do comprehend it, war never changes. There is only one way to end war without the bloodshed. That's diplomacy. That is diplomacy. Politicians being a globalist, accepting your neighbor as equals, accepting that your word is not God, accepting that error is human, accepting that debate is more valuable than weapons. Of course, those racists, they don't understand it because they think the Jews are whatnot are all at fault. They think that the only great country is a white country. But what they don't understand is that our illegal immigrants came to this nation because it is a great country. Mexicans who are Mexicans, Canadians, Russians, France, I can't think of enough. Anyways, all these different nationalities came here because of one basic purpose. It is a great nation. To share in that greatness. To share its offerings is what made this country grow. Instead, we have these white supremacists who think white power, despite realizing that the only power out there is the mass numbers of all the cultures in the world. Because what's strength in a fist? One fist could do so little, but many can do so much. So it's a very simple rule. It's math, really. One hand cannot build as much as hundreds of thousands. One mind cannot build as many advances as thousands. These are basic rules. And the people who succeed in this only ask of one thing: a paycheck. for a living, and to see their grand design up for all to see. They don't care for credit. They don't care for points on a media channel or social blog. They care just to see their artwork, their dream manifest. They care about the end product. That is what they care for. So I was talking with a friend of mine, and I asked him, why is it that the white racist man believes that blacks are not educatable and inherently violent? And he gave me a good answer. He said they believe that they are not educatable because they do not let them be educated. How can a person be educated if not allowed to? How can a person learn if they don't have a teacher? So then why do they see them as inherently violent? Because they see them as the enemy and they fight a lot with them. They make them fight. Give the black man something to fight. And they are like soldiers on the battlefield who think that all the people of that race are evil just because the person in front of them holds a gun. Just because people are shooting at them. They forget. Everyone's fighting for something. The only thing is that what you're fighting for real? Is it for peace? Or is it for war? Because if it's for war, then you're after only one end. A blood-soaked funeral. Glory in itself is only valuable to the living. And trust me when I say there is nothing in all of creation that can take away the nightmares you get after you kill someone. Nothing. Until you get desensitized to it. Becomes an itch. But then killing becomes easy. You have to. It's something you forget that we're all human, including yourself. You have to remember that people have a right to live just as much as you. And it is not right to subject a person to have to defend their right to live. It is not right to make a person have to fight for the right for life, liberty, in the pursuit of happiness. It is only right to make a person earn it through basic 50-50 exchange of fairness. Which is basically to say only the person who they work with can give them a challenge, not the person who just wants to do it for the lulz, or some sense of superiority, or a simple test of trial. It's just pointless. The only burden a person should have to carry is the one that is to haul the rock up the hill. It is not right for somebody to put more weight on it. It is not right for someone to make it harder, or to prevent them from even trying. That is why Trump got to be a candidate. Got to run a campaign with full respect. That is why Obama says to accept him as your president, because despite this racist man who harassed him for all these years, he still says to the people, respect him and accept him, because he believes in the right of life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. But the rest of the world doesn't see it that way. We see a man who has robbed people of that chance over and over and over again. We do not want him to rob us like he has robbed everyone else. Like he promises to rob everyone else. So, for the sake of our freedom, for life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, I fully support the protests. I fully support this civil conflict and unrest. Because the people protesting against Trump are doing it for life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. The people fighting against the protesters are doing it because it's their job. Because they get a paycheck. Some of them do it because they're racist. They don't think other people should have the right. Some people just don't understand. Some people don't want to understand. Some people just sense that they have to fight. So for the religious people out there, I say a very simple thing. The devil is the king of deceit and lies, my friend. How could you not see a liar when all of his victims come crying to you, begging for help? How can you not tell the devil? Of course, the devil would offer you gold. Or as a cartoon I saw recently watched, it was an ism. To offer you isms in exchange for your freedom. So, if you're alright with living in a white America, where the Hicks end up fighting each other because they run out of Mexicans or Latinos or other people, which I have to say this after speaking with some of those Trump supporters. They say that Mexico is not a race, it's a nationality, which is true. But when you refer to Mexicans, you're not referring to Mexicans as a nationality, you're referring to the Latinos race. Using the term Mexicans is just a coward's way of doing things. Because the Mexicans are Latinos. They come from the Latin states, South America. And they speak Spanish. Oh, Mexican dialect of Spanish. But they're still Spanish nonetheless. And that's the only distinguishing factors you can get out of them. You cannot, the only distinguishing factor between an American and Hispanic is, well, there is none. Because Americans are multicultural. Racists, on the other hand, they, see things more differently. They see things as Americans must all be white with blonde hair and blue eyes and extra white albino skin with a hint of orange tan. So, a lot of people, they say that Muslims were all to blame. Well, I have to say this, and it was pointed out in the news. Something that happened 15 years ago. We've had peace for the entire time, for the 15 years after, and for the 100 so years prior. We've had peace with the Muslims. Of course, the racists would know that, because you simply just want a blood-soaked America. So I say, to stop them from killing all, I say, protest. I say riot. I say, we are not racists. This is America. And we pride ourselves on our tolerance and our acceptance of other cultures. He is not that. He is not our president. He is not my leader. I see his surrogates trying to puss out, cover his ass. And when I say this, when I see this, I think, why is it so difficult for him to separate himself from racist groups? He tries so hard to keep himself separated from them, but only because the media forces him to do so. So why is it so hard for him to separate himself from it? It's easy. It's like they say in the racist clans. It's because he shares their ideals. Nobody cares whether or not he's actually being part of these groups. It is the fact that they love him, because he is just as racist as they are. You might as well be part of their group. But of course we all know he is part of their group, because they have evidence of him being part of the group. They have evidence of him bragging about his relationships with Putin, where he then denies it later on. Goes back and forth on that. And they have evidence of him being buddy-buddy with the Grand Wizard. So, it just goes to say he just says it because he wants the media to help him lie to the people. I saw a thing that says that the media turned off his mic after he called them out on their shit. You know what I say to that? I say they turned it off because they're fucking tired of his bullshit. And some people actually hold some dignity in their news reporting. And they will not just stand by idly and let this guy lie to the general public on their TV. I heard a report that said, this election wouldn't be so difficult if it wasn't for the media propping up Hillary. Yeah, I actually believe that too. Because without the media covering Trump or Hillary, nobody would know who they were. And the only thing that people would know about Trump is that he's a racist. No, they wouldn't even know that. The only thing they know is that at a rally is that he is who he says he is, which is a lie to the general public. Nobody to hold him accountable. Nobody to hold him to his words. Nobody to keep him consistent. To question him. Only people to prop him up. It's easy to wear 1,000 faces so long as the people you're showing them to doesn't talk to the other people you've shown a different one to. So, when I hear them talk about that, it sounds like they're whining about people holding them accountable. I give props to the media who were against Trump. Because to those of you who would see me as biased for saying that, I have one strong thing to say to you, and I'm dumbing it down as much as I possibly can. Oh, this isn't empty. I thought I drank all this. Anyways, this is a Frappuccino. It's cold. Got some fungus growing in there. I haven't thrown it away in a while. But, it's Frappuccino. And this was a mocha. Which is probably bad now because I thought it was empty and didn't finish it. I should throw all these away. Anyways, Frappuccinos make my stomach want to throw up. I don't know, it's a bad reaction. The mochas are just fucking great. I am so addicted to those. We call the Frappuccinos in relation to Trump and the mochas in relation to Hillary. Would that be bias for liking the mocha because it tastes so damn good? And bias against the Frappuccino because it makes my stomach react in a way that forces me to take antacids? That's like saying that Bing is equally as good or better than Google, despite the fact that Google has a long outstanding record and even a supercomputer it's like I got a quantum processor in their stations. It's like, I think it's fairly obvious to say you're not biased for looking at the facts or promoting based on the facts. Because I would not promote a Frappuccino to anybody. But I would certainly promote a mocha. Just like I would promote Hillary. Just like the media did. And listen to those people and they say, why don't you talk about Hillary's emails? It's like, person can only talk about the emails for so long. Trump's giving them truckloads of new material to talk about on the daily. So, it seems like they just wanted us to hate Hillary unconditionally based on just a few things and love Trump despite the many, many bad things. Which is bias. That is bias. I normally don't suggest civil distrust. But I know if you constantly go by what people want you to do in your daily living, nobody will give a shit or know you exist. It's basically like they say in the Matrix, programs are everywhere. You never hear about them so long as they're doing their job, but when they stop doing their job, you never hear the end of those. That's how it is with other people. The only way to be heard is not to empower Trump, but to fight against him. One thing I do know is he's a little hard of hearing. Despite the fact of days of rioting and days of protest, Trump's only response is a small crowd. He's dismissing you, undermining the people, but still riled nonetheless. He's feeling it. I saw that earlier today. I forget how, though. I just too tired to recall right now. But if people were to go, and if you're listening to this, protesters, I have to say this. Make fun of Trump when they interview you. Make fun of him a lot. That way when they show you on the news, you can really piss him off. Pissing him off really isn't hard to do. You can say he's not my president, Trump's not gonna care. You say he's a small-handed little whiny bitch, then he's gonna care. Oh, 13 megabits. Being racist is not about nationality, it's about race. Muslims, for instance, they have a distinct genetic encoding that makes them very easily identifiable, much like Asians versus Americans versus Hispanics and Russians and Australians and etc., etc., etc. We all have our genetic differences that only further our individuality. When people say illegal Mexican, they're not looking for Mexicans from Mexico. They're looking for Latinos. When people say Muslims, they're not talking about those from Iraq or Iran. They're talking Muslims. They're talking about people from the Israeli states. They're talking about the race. Generally, I don't approve of them wearing those things on their head. I like to be able to see the face because I'm concerned about it. But earlier, I went to the store in Fred Meyer's and I saw something interesting. I saw a kid wearing an ominous mask. Nobody was doing anything about that. As long as they're not physically doing anything wrong, there's no harm in it. It's just a security issue is all. Big issue that I have to say before I run out of memory or file size. Being PC is not about being, not hurting people's feelings. That's more a social justice warrior, which is what Trump is, because he really hates it when the media says something shitty about him. Being politically correct is about being able to define something accurately in a way that can be fully understood. For instance, it is politically correct to call this a coffee. Is this a soda? No, this is a soda. Is this a banana? No, this isn't even a banana. I don't have a banana in here. But being politically incorrect would say, yeah, this is banana. Fuck yeah, fuck PC, No. If I were to go up to somebody and I say, yeah, that banana was great, that tin can was awesome to eat, then people would be like, what? And they're like, oh, I'm just being politically incorrect is all, because I don't like this system. And it's like, no. They'll be like, what the fuck are you talking about, man? You sound stupid. That's what the hell are you talking about? It's like, oh, I'm just talking about this banana. It's like, oh, you mean the mocha? It's like, don't be PC, don't be so PC. It's a banana. It's like, no, it's a mocha. People. I had an argument with a person, and he says that, Trump just wants to get rid of illegal Mexicans. My immediate response to him was the judge an illegal Mexican? Because last I checked, he was born in the United States, and Trump still referred to him as an illegal. And then his surrogates made a bunch of excuses, tried to make it less of a racist statement. Wipe his ass because he just shot himself. Anyways, that's the end of this. I have just tapped my file size limit, so enjoy your little hell. Some of us would rather end up fighting for heaven. By heaven, I mean our right to life, liberty, and happiness. As a human being of any and all races.